Rubin "Hurricane" Carter died in his home in Toronto on Sunday following a battle with prostate cancer. To discuss his legacy, we go to Toronto, where we're joined by John Artis, Rubin "Hurricane" Carter's co-defendant and friend. He's been living with and caring for Carter since he fell ill. We welcome you to Democracy Now!, John. Condolences to you as you were with Rubin Carter to the end. Talk about the significance of Rubin Carter's struggle against wrongful incarceration.
Well, good morning, and thank you for the condolences. Rubin primarily was a David against the Goliath of the judicial system. He abhorred injustice, unfairness, and any type of behavior or action that people who could not afford to speak out or fight up against, he felt like he had to champion their causes.
Talk about how you met Rubin "Hurricane" Carter.
Oh, I met him because we happened to know the same family in Paterson, New Jersey, and I was at the home one evening with my friend when he arrived, and I was briefly introduced to him at that time, but he wasn't a person that I palled around with. He was in a different ilk. He was a professional athlete. I was a well-known high school athlete, and we chose different sports. He boxed, and I played football, basketball, and ran track. Actually, I had won a track scholarship to Colorado State prior to our arrest.
And talk about what happened on that night in 1986 when you and Hurricane Carter were stopped by police.
1966.
1966.
Yes. And this was shortly, maybe 2 weeks after I initially met Rubin. And I saw him in town, and I asked him to give me a ride to the night spot, which he did, which was a popular club in Paterson. And at the conclusion of the evening, I asked him to give me a ride home. He said, okay, but if he was going to take me home, I would have to drive. On the way out of the club, another individual asked Rubin if he could get a ride home. So the three of us got into his car, but first Rubin wanted to go to his home. So while he was directing me how to get to his home, which is on the east side of Paterson, we were stopped by the Paterson police. And as you see in the film, an officer walked up and looked inside the car and wanted to see my license and registration. And when he noticed Rubin, he said, oh, champ, I didn't see you there. So Rubin said, well, what's the problem? He says, well, we're looking for two Negroes, but there were three of us in the car. So they permitted us to leave. And Rubin went to his home, and I took the guy that was in the car with us. I drove him home first, and then I was en route to let myself out to go home when we were stopped by the same police officer at an intersection in Paterson, and he didn't bother to tell his reinforcements or the support of other police officers that arrived that he had already seen us, and there were three people in the car when now there were only two. And at that juncture, they took us to the scene of the crime, and that was the beginning of the nightmare.
And you saw this horror, the scene of the crime.
Well, they made us get out of the car in this crowd of people that had gathered there and made us stand up against the wall of the tavern. And while we were standing there, they began to bring out sheet-covered bodies to be put into ambulances and such. And then a patrol wagon pulled up, and we were taken to police headquarters.
Talk about that first trial. You ended up in jail for 15 years, and then ultimately talk about Judge Sorokin and his role.
Oh, wow. Well, the first trial, I had never been in trouble. And the death penalty was the penalty that was being sought in this trial. We had been charged with 3 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of atrocious assault and battery with intent to kill. The trial lasted for 6 weeks, and my name was only mentioned once, and that was by the alleged 2 star witnesses for the state. At the conclusion of 6 weeks, the jury went into the deliberation room, and they only stayed 4 hours and came back. And when they returned, no one was looking at us. The women were crying. And since it was a first-degree murder case, it's the only time in New Jersey law that the jury decides your sentence. So when the foreman stood up and stated that we, the jury, find the defendants Rubin Carter and John Artis guilty, my knees buckled. That's the most afraid I've ever been in my entire life, because the next statement out of his mouth would determine exactly what was going to happen to us. And after staring at both of us, he finally said, with a recommendation for mercy. Had he stated without a recommendation for mercy, Rubin and I would have been put on death row.
You said in another interview, John Artis, I was always the guy in the background, the other guy in the case that no one knew or cared about.
Yes, they didn't want me. The intent and effort was to get Rubin. As a matter of fact, the police stated that all you have to do is just say that it was Rubin Carter, and we'll let you go. But I refused to do that. They tried the same thing 10 years later. I refused to do that when they brought me out of prison and took me to my father's home and prefaced a statement when I walked through the door that we know that you didn't kill anyone, but we think that you were there and or you knew about it. So just sign a statement that says that Rubin Carter is the one that committed the crimes, and we'll let you go. We'll get you out of prison. And I refused to do it at that time as well.
John